The Arctic sun hangs low in the sky, its pale light spreading across a realm untouched by roads, cities, or time itself. Here, above the northernmost reaches of Alaska, the land seems endless, a canvas painted in whites, blues, and muted greens, where silence reigns and every breath of wind carries the weight of eternity. Jagged peaks spear the heavens, their crowns forever dusted with snow. Between them, wide valleys stretch outward, carpeted in tundra that glows gold in the fleeting summer, and lies buried in ice for the rest of the year. Rivers cut across this wilderness like silver threads, winding and twisting, carving lifelines through the frozen earth. Their waters rush with a restless energy, feeding forests of spruce at their edges and carrying with them the promise of survival to those who dare to inhabit this land. But make no mistake, this beauty is unforgiving. Winters here swallow the world in darkness, plunging the landscape into months of silence when the sun itself vanishes below the horizon. Temperatures plummet, winds scream across the ridges, and snow drifts rise like barricades against life. Survival is not granted here. It is fought for with every heartbeat. Yet, in this seeming desolation, life not only endures, it thrives. Across the tundra, the thunder of hooves signals the migration of caribou, moving in unison like rivers of flesh and bone. In their shadow stalk wolves, relentless hunters bound by loyalty and hunger. On the cliffs, Dall sheep cling to vertical walls, their white coats blending seamlessly into the snow, while far below, moose wade through icy waters, massive antlers towering above their hulking bodies. The rivers themselves harbor a different struggle. Salmon fight their way upstream, battling currents and leaping against waterfalls in a final act of defiance, while eagles circle above, their sharp eyes locked onto the weak and the weary. On the tundra, musk oxen gather in tight formations, ancient warriors of the Ice Age, lowering their heads to meet the charge of predators with walls of horn and fur. And still, this is only the beginning. For every creature here, every heartbeat is measured against the brutal arithmetic of the Arctic. Eat or be eaten, endure or perish. Few places remain on Earth where nature dictates the law without compromise, where humans are mere visitors to a kingdom that predates them and will outlast them. This is one such place, vast, raw, and untamed. This is Gates of the Arctic. Life in Gates of the Arctic is written in the language of conflict. Here, every step across the tundra, every ripple on the river carries a single question: who eats and who is eaten? On a windswept plain, a great herd of caribou moves steadily northward. Their hooves drum a steady rhythm against the earth, 1,000 bodies surging together, muscle and bone bound by instinct older than memory. Calves stumble to keep pace with their mothers, learning the ancient paths etched into this land. But shadowing them, patient and tireless, are the wolves. From a ridge, a pack watches. Their golden eyes glint in the fading light, their bodies lean and honed for endurance. They do not rush the herd. They wait, reading the movement, seeking weakness. For the wolf, survival is not about brute strength but strategy, testing the edges, probing for the calf that lags, the old bull slowed by age, the stumble that spells the difference between life and death. The moment comes suddenly. A calf strays too far, its legs trembling from exhaustion. The wolves erupt, streaming down the slope like arrows loosed from a bow. The herd panics, breaking into a storm of bodies. Snow and dirt explode beneath pounding hooves. The wolves close the distance, jaws snapping, and in the chaos, the caribou's fate is sealed. But not all battles are so clean. Along the banks of a swollen river, a grizzly bear waits. Its massive frame blends into the willows, its nose twitching at the scent of salmon fighting upstream. When the fish leap against the current, the bear lunges, paws swiping with devastating force. Some escape, flinging themselves higher into the torrent. Others are caught mid-air, clamped in jaws designed to crush. For the bear, every fish is fuel for the long sleep of winter. For the salmon, every leap is a final act of survival, their journey ending in sacrifice for the next generation. Even the high places are not safe. On the cliffs, a Dall sheep lowers its head to graze, unaware of golden eyes above. An eagle, wings spread wide, dives with breathtaking speed, talons extended like daggers. The sheep startles, stones tumbling into the abyss below. A misstep here means death, yet agility is its only defense. It scrambles, clinging to the impossible slopes, the eagle forced to veer away in frustration. For now, the sheep survives, but in this land, luck is always temporary. This is the eternal law of gates of the Arctic: confrontation, predator against prey, hunger against fear. The strong live because the weak fall, and the cycle repeats without pause, without mercy. Energy is borrowed, never owned, passed from the hunted to the hunter, from life to death, fueling the pulse of this unforgiving wilderness. Here, survival is not guaranteed, it is earned, one desperate heartbeat at a time. Stretching across nearly 8.4 million acres, the park is larger than many countries, yet almost untouched by human hands. Its boundaries cradle 6 wild mountain ranges, the Brooks Range cutting jagged silhouettes against the horizon. Valleys sweep wide and open, carved by ice and time. Rivers snake endlessly through the tundra, braiding into silver threads that glisten beneath the Arctic sun, their waters feeding forests, marshes, and the great northern plain. If the tundra is the skin of gates of the Arctic, then its rivers are the lifeblood. Winding, braiding, and cutting through valleys carved by ancient glaciers, waterways thread across the park in endless motion, nourishing every creature that depends on them. Among the most iconic are the Kobuk, the Alatna, and the Noatak, rivers that have shaped this landscape for millennia. The Kobuk River, broad and meandering, flows westward through the southern reaches of the park, eventually spilling into the Bering Sea. Its banks swell each spring with meltwater, creating wetlands alive with migratory birds. The Alatna, by contrast, is quieter, a ribbon of solitude cutting through spruce forests and tundra alike, its currents reflecting mountains that rise like jagged guardians on either side. Then there is the Noatak River, one of the longest undammed rivers in North America. It curves in sweeping arcs across the tundra, its waters clear and cold, a pristine reminder of what rivers once were before dams and industry altered so many. But these rivers are more than scenery. They are highways of survival. Each summer, an ancient ritual unfolds within their depths. The salmon runs. From the open sea, salmon surge upstream, driven by instincts written deep in their blood. They battle currents, leap against waterfalls, and press onward toward the gravel beds where they were born. Their journey is one of immense struggle, and yet it is the keystone upon which countless other lives depend. Along the riverbanks, grizzly bears emerge from the shadows, their coats wet with spray as they wade into the shallows. A sudden flash of silver, then a swipe of powerful claws, and the bear secures its meal. Every fish is a gift of fat and protein, fuel for the long hibernation that waits at winter's edge. Overhead, eagles circle with piercing eyes, swooping low to snatch weakened salmon from the water. Even wolves, though less skilled at fishing, sometimes gather near the runs, scavenging leftovers from bear kills. For foxes, gulls, and even the tiniest scavenging insects, the salmon's death is life renewed. The drama is not only in the hunt but in the sacrifice. For the salmon, this upstream battle is their final journey. They spawn, release their future into the gravel beds, and then perish. Their bodies, carried downstream or left along the shores, return nutrients to the very soil, feeding plants that in turn nourish herbivores. Life in the Arctic is built upon this cycle of return and renewal. Not all river dwellers migrate, however. Some stay year-round, reshaping the waterways themselves. The beaver is among the Arctic's most transformative architects. With relentless determination, they fell willows and alders, dragging them into the current to construct dams. These barriers slow the rushing water, creating ponds and wetlands that host waterfowl, amphibians, and fish nurseries. In winter, beavers retreat into lodges, fortresses of mud and wood insulated against the cold, where they feed on cached branches until the thaw returns. Where the tundra begins to soften, and scattered shrubs give way to clusters of spruce and willow, the boreal forest edge rises like a living frontier. It is here, at the northernmost reach of the world's largest forest, that trees push stubbornly into the open plains, their dark needles piercing the horizon. Black and white spruce stand against the Arctic winds, their branches bent beneath snow in winter and heavy with cones in summer. Beneath them, the forest floor is damp with moss, willows, and dwarf birch, nutrients in waiting for the great herbivores that roam these shadowed groves. In the quiet of dawn, the forest stirs with the movements of its largest resident, the moose. Towering more than 2 meters at the shoulder and crowned with antlers that spread wider than a man is tall, the moose is a monarch of the boreal edge. Slow and deliberate, it moves between thickets of willow, stripping branches with jaws built for browsing. In summer, it wades into ponds and river shallows, plunging its great head beneath the water to feast on aquatic plants. Despite its massive size, the moose lives in constant tension. Its bulk is both armor and burden, making every step through snow a test of endurance. For calves, the dangers are immediate. In spring, when mothers lead their young into the forest shelter, predators stir nearby. Among the shadows moves the most elusive of hunters, the Canada lynx. Cloaked in soft gray fur and tufted ears, the lynx is a ghost of the boreal edge, rarely seen, yet always present. Its movements are silent, each step calculated as it follows the narrow trails carved by its prey. That prey is the snowshoe hare, a creature whose fate dictates the rhythm of life in the forest. In summer, the hare's coat is mottled brown, blending perfectly with willow bark and forest soil. In winter, it shifts to dazzling white, vanishing into the snow. Yet camouflage is no absolute defense. The lynx waits, patient, watching for the twitch of an ear, the flick of movement that betrays the hare's hiding place. When the moment comes, the strike is swift, an explosion of power from stillness, jaws closing around fragile life. But the balance is delicate. Snowshoe hares boom in numbers, and then collapse, their populations rising and falling in cycles that shape the destiny of predator and prey alike. When hares are abundant, lynx thrive, raising litters of kittens in hidden dens. When hare numbers crash, the lynx suffers, hunger thinning their ranks until the cycle begins anew. It is a rhythm as old as the forest itself, written in the shadows of spruce and the silence of snow. The boreal forest edge is a meeting ground where life from both tundra and forest mingles, collides, and survives. Up here, in the very crown of the continent, time itself seems to bend and warp under the will of the Arctic sky. The gates of the Arctic is not a place of ordinary seasons. It does not know gentle springs, mild summers, or cozy winters. Instead, life is divided into extremes: blinding, endless light, and suffocating, endless dark. For half the year, the sun refuses to set, circling low on the horizon and casting a golden glow that never fades. Shadows stretch forever but never vanish, and the tundra shimmers with a ghostly brilliance at midnight. For the other half, the sun disappears altogether, leaving the land submerged in a darkness so absolute that even the stars struggle to pierce it. This cycle of extremes is no mere backdrop. It is the law of survival. Every creature, from the mightiest grizzly to the tiniest insect, must adapt or perish. When the sun reigns supreme, animals launch into a desperate frenzy of activity. Moose and caribou feast endlessly, cramming calories into their bodies while plants still sprout green. Salmon surge upriver in their final fatal migration, providing banquets for bears, wolves, and eagles. Birds arrive in a cacophony, filling the air with songs of breeding and nesting, each note a declaration of urgency. There is no time to waste. Even the smallest flowers bloom in record speed, rising from frozen ground, flowering, and seeding in the space of mere weeks. In the Arctic, summer is not leisure. It is a race against an unforgiving clock, and then, the pendulum swings. As the sun dips below the horizon and refuses to return, the world is plunged into eternal night. Temperatures plummet, rivers freeze solid. The land transforms into a barren kingdom of snow and silence. For some, survival means retreat. Birds flee south, leaving empty nests behind. Caribou migrate across hundreds of miles, chasing lichen under snowdrifts. Wolves follow them like shadows. Others must endure. Grizzly bears dig deep into the earth, curling into hibernation. Their heartbeats slowing as if the wilderness itself has pressed pause on their lives. Small mammals tunnel under snow, creating tiny secret cities warmed by their own bodies. The lynx prowls silently in the pale glow of the moon, relying on its thick coat and sharp reflexes to find prey in the darkness. Even the snowshoe hare transforms, its brown coat turning ghost white, vanishing into the frozen backdrop. Camouflage is survival, and invisibility is the closest thing to safety. But survival in the gates of the Arctic is never guaranteed. A late freeze can starve a moose calf. A weak salmon run can leave a grizzly thin and vulnerable. A snowstorm in spring can bury nests before chicks hatch. Here, the turning of seasons is not predictable. It is a gamble. And yet, this gamble sustains life in ways unimaginable elsewhere. The endless light births an explosion of activity, and the endless dark tests every adaptation nature has devised. Together, they form the rhythm of existence in the gates of the Arctic. Here, life is not measured in days or months, but in cycles of brilliance and shadow. And those who endure, those who bend without breaking, carry forward the ancient eternal dance of survival. They come like shadows rolling over the tundra. A living tide of antlers and hooves. The western Arctic caribou herd, one of the largest in North America, moves with a rhythm as old as time itself. Tens of thousands surge across rivers, tundra, and ridgelines, bound together by an instinct older than memory. From the jagged peaks of the Brooks Range to the sweeping lowlands of the coastal plain, their migration is one of the great spectacles of the natural world. In spring, when the snow loosens its grip on the land, the herds begin their trek northward. Pregnant females lead the way, driven by the urgency of birth. Each step across icy rivers and thawing tundra is a gamble. Swift currents pull at their legs and frigid waters sap their strength. But the reward is survival, for ahead lies the calving grounds. Vast open tundra where predators are fewer, and the wind keeps insects at bay. Then, as if on cue, the miracle unfolds. Within days, the tundra teems with life. Tiny calves, spindly, fragile, yet astonishingly quick, rise to their feet within minutes of birth. They stumble, totter, and then run, for hesitation is a death sentence here. Wolves watch from the ridgelines, eyes sharp, waiting for a moment of weakness. Grizzly bears roam the valleys, noses lifted to the scent of new life. For every calf born, there is a predator lurking, and for every predator, there is a chance at a meal. It is the eternal exchange of energy, raw and uncompromising. The migration doesn't stop. Even as the calves learn to stand, the herd pushes forward, a ceaseless march across landscapes that test the limits of endurance. Mosquitoes rise in swarms as summer comes, clouds so thick they darken the horizon. To escape, the caribou climb to wind-swept ridges, gathering in dense, restless clusters. Their hides twitch and their hooves stamp as the insects torment them, draining both blood and strength. Yet the herd moves on, driven by the magnetic pull of distant feeding grounds. In autumn, the tundra glows gold and crimson, and the caribou once more retrace their steps southward. Bulls clash in battles of antlers and muscle, each striving for dominance in the rut. Their echoing bellows roll across the valleys, a reminder that even within the herd, competition is fierce. By winter they reach the shelter of the boreal forest, where lichen clings beneath the snow, a meager but vital food that sustains them through the bitter dark. The caribou are more than just wanderers. They are architects of the land, shaping the tundra with their passage, feeding wolves and bears, carrying nutrients across ecosystems. Indigenous peoples have followed them for millennia, their lives intertwined with the great migrations. In every antler shed, every hoofprint pressed into the mud, lies a story of survival, resilience, and continuity. And so the caribou march on, season after season, year after year. Through storm and sun, across rivers and plains, their movement defines the heartbeat of the Arctic. This is the Great Migration of the North. If the caribou are the restless wanderers of gates of the Arctic, then the moose are the monarchs who stand their ground. Towering at over 6 feet at the shoulder and weighing nearly 1,000 pounds, they are the undisputed giants of the deer family. Their broad, palm-shaped antlers stretch out like nature's crown, sometimes spanning over 6 feet across, signaling power, dominance, and a readiness to defend their territory. In this wilderness, size is survival, and moose are built like tanks. They wade through thickets of willow and alder, their long legs perfectly suited to push through snowdrifts or marshy wetlands. With their prehensile lips, they strip branches clean, browsing endlessly, transforming willow thickets into moose-shaped topiaries. What the caribou achieves in movement, the moose achieves in stillness, a quiet but stubborn mastery of its patch of land. But autumn in gates of the Arctic shifts this calm into chaos. As the short, fiery season of rut begins, the silence of the valleys is shattered by deep, resonant bellows, moose bulls announcing their presence. They thrash their antlers through trees, tearing bark, shaking branches, leaving their scent in the air like a challenge letter pinned to the forest itself. Rival bulls answer the call. When they meet, the tundra becomes a battleground. Two titans charge, their massive frames colliding with a crack that echoes through the valley. Antlers lock, muscles strain, and the outcome decides access to females, to legacy, to survival of their bloodline. Sometimes the battles are short, with one bull retreating in defeat. Other times they drag on, antlers scraping and twisting until one is forced into submission. Yet even victors are never safe. In the harsh arithmetic of this land, every weakness is exploited. A rutting bull, drained from combat, may stumble into the path of wolves or grizzlies. For predators, a weary moose is an opportunity, and they circle with patience. Wolves, lean and relentless, may test the giant with quick darts and snaps, forcing it to run, to burn through its last reserves of strength. A grizzly, with its brute power, can ambush from the cover of spruce. Even giants fall in this place, and when they do, their bodies feed the land, ravens, foxes, and the unseen scavengers of the night. Still, the moose endure. In winter, when temperatures plunge and snow buries the tundra, they retreat into the shelter of spruce forests, browsing whatever they can find. In spring, mothers guard their calves with ferocity, standing between them and danger, striking with hooves powerful enough to shatter a wolf's skull. Every season brings new tests, but moose survive because they are not just big, they are resilient, cautious, and unyielding. From a distance, they look like something torn straight out of the Ice Age, shaggy, hulking, draped in coats so heavy they seem sculpted from winter itself. These are the musk oxen, the ancient beasts that have walked this Arctic land since mammoths still roamed the earth. In Gates of the Arctic, they are the guardians of time, living proof that survival can span thousands of frozen centuries. Their coats are more than just fur. They are armor against the coldest winters on the planet. Beneath that long outer wool, called guard hairs, lies an underlayer so soft and insulating that it has a name whispered with reverence: kivyut. 8 times warmer than sheep's wool and lighter than air, it allows musk oxen to endure blizzards where even steel seems to shiver. As the winds howl across the tundra, they stand steady, unflinching, with snow piling on their backs until they resemble boulders rather than beasts. But their survival is not only a story of insulation, it is also a story of unity. When predators appear, wolves on the hunt, eyes gleaming in the pale light, the musk oxen enact a defense perfected over millennia. The herd forms a circle, calves tucked safely in the center, adults facing outward with horns lowered. Together, they are a fortress of wool and muscle, a wall that snarls back at the threat. Wolves circle, probing for weakness, but often they find only frustration. To break the circle is to invite the wrath of mothers who charge like battering rams, horns sharp enough to break bone. Life for the musk ox, however, is not always war. Their days are often quiet, devoted to grazing on tundra grasses, sedges, and mosses. Their broad hooves spread their weight across snow, allowing them to dig with sweeping motions, uncovering hidden food beneath the crust of ice. It is a slow, deliberate rhythm. Eat, move, endure. In this frozen world, patience is the essence of survival, and yet, even the mighty muskox are not invincible. In summer, biting insects drive them nearly mad, forcing them to retreat to windswept ridges where breezes can offer relief. In winter, calves sometimes freeze before they can grow strong. Wolves, always watching, take the weak and the slow. Their existence is a balance between strength and fragility, a reminder that even Ice Age survivors live at the mercy of the Arctic. Still, there is something eternal in their presence. To watch a herd crest a ridge at dawn, steam rising from their bodies in the chill air, is to glimpse the ancient heartbeat of this land. High above the tundra and forest, where the mountains of Gates of the Arctic cut into the clouds, a different kind of life clings to survival. Here, on sheer cliffs and rocky crags, dwell the Dall sheep, ghostly white figures moving against the gray stone. They are perfectly built for this vertical world, their nimble hooves gripping tiny ledges where no predator dares to follow. To live here is to gamble with gravity every single day. Yet for these sheep, the risk is worth the reward. The cliffs provide refuge. Wolves may chase caribou across valleys. Bears may dig for ground squirrels in the tundra. But few predators are bold enough to test their luck on a knife-edge slope. Eagles might circle above, hoping for a misstep from a lamb. But the adults hold their ground, moving with a calm confidence that seems almost supernatural. They know the rules of this high domain and they play them well. Yet even in this sanctuary, life is not easy. Winters are brutal. The wind scours the slopes, blasting snow across the rocks. The sheep dig through drifts to reach lichens and hardy alpine plants that cling to life here. To be a Dall sheep is to endure hunger, cold, and the constant threat of slipping into the void. But hardship shapes resilience, and it also shapes spectacle. When autumn rolls around, the rams begin their battles for dominance. Their curling horns, massive and heavy, are more than just ornaments. They are weapons. Two rams will face each other, dig in their hooves, and charge headlong with a thunderous crack as horn meets horn. The sound echoes down the valley, like a drumbeat of the mountains themselves. Again and again they clash, sometimes up to 20 times in a single contest, until one yields. The winner earns the right to breed, passing his strength and endurance into the next generation. To watch these battles is to see raw survival distilled into ritual. It is not about killing, it is about proving. The horns tell the story of age and struggle, each curl and ridge a record of years spent in this unforgiving land. The rams carry their history on their heads, and the mountains echo it back to them in every clash. For the ewes and lambs, life is quieter but no less demanding. They move carefully along the ridgelines, teaching the young where to step, how to balance, how to sense danger on the wind. The lambs grow fast, but every misstep could be fatal. In the first few weeks of life, survival hangs on tiny hooves and sharp instincts. The Dall sheep are not just survivors, they are symbols of purity and endurance. Their snow-white coats blend into the peaks, making them creatures of stone and sky. If there is a single creature that embodies both fear and respect in the Arctic wild, it is the grizzly bear. Enormous, powerful, and endlessly resourceful, grizzlies are the masters of survival in a land that offers both feast and famine. They are not merely predators, they are opportunists, scavengers, guardians of cubs, and living symbols of raw wilderness. During the short Arctic summer, the land explodes with life, and the bears rise from their long winter slumber hungry and determined. With noses 1,000 times more sensitive than ours, they detect food miles away. Berries ripening in the tundra, salmon surging upstream, or the lingering scent of a caribou carcass hidden in the grass. Nothing is wasted. They gorge themselves on berries until their muzzles are stained purple. They plunge into rivers with astonishing speed to snatch thrashing salmon, and they are not above stealing a wolf's kill if the opportunity presents itself. Every meal is a deposit into the fat reserves they will need to endure the frozen silence of winter. But while grizzlies are often imagined as ruthless killers, the truth is more complex. In many ways, they are energy economists. Attacking a moose or caribou is risky and exhausting, so unless driven by hunger, they prefer easier meals: fish, berries, insects, or scavenged remains. Their massive claws, sharp as knives, are as useful for digging up roots or turning over stones for grubs as they are for defending against rivals. As the days shorten, the great preparation begins. By autumn, grizzlies enter a phase known as hyperphagia, a biological frenzy where they consume thousands of calories daily. Every fish caught, every berry swallowed, is converted into fat, their survival ticket for the months of darkness ahead. And then comes the stillness. Winter sweeps across the tundra. burying rivers, forests, and valleys under blankets of snow. While the land hardens into silence, grizzlies vanish into hidden dens dug deep into slopes or under tangled roots. Here they surrender to hibernation, their heartbeats slowing, their bodies conserving every ounce of stored energy. Pregnant females give birth in this sanctuary, nursing blind and fragile cubs in the darkness of the den, long before the first light of spring returns. When the cubs finally emerge months later, they wobble into a dangerous world under the protection of a fiercely devoted mother. For nearly 2 years, she teaches them everything: how to fish in turbulent waters, how to forage among berry shrubs, and how to recognize danger. Every lesson is survival. But even under her care, the odds are stacked against them. Many cubs do not survive predators, starvation, or the brutal competition of the wild. Yet those that endure grow into the formidable guardians of the land that humans both fear and admire. In the silent expanse of the Arctic, few creatures embody both mystery and mastery like the wolf. They move as shadows over tundra and forest, silent stalkers who live by their unity. Here, in this unforgiving land, wolves are not just predators. They are architects of balance, shaping populations, and reminding all who watch that survival is a game of patience, intelligence, and strength. The most iconic image of wolves in the Arctic is tied to the vast migrations of caribou. Year after year, packs trail the great herds of the western Arctic caribou, moving in sync with them across frozen rivers and endless plains. For the wolves, these migrations are both a banquet and a challenge. They cannot afford to waste energy chasing every animal, so they study, they wait, and they choose. Their eyes scan thousands of moving legs until they find the weak, the sick, or the very young. Then, the chase begins. But the wolves are not reckless. They move with strategy. A pack surrounds its chosen target, spreading out like a net. Some dart forward to test the caribou's speed, others block escape routes, while still others hang back, ready to close in at just the right moment. The hunt is a dance of endurance, a test of the caribou's strength against the patience of wolves. Sometimes the prey escapes, sometimes the wolves win. Either way, the chase is an eternal thread woven into Arctic life. The secret to their survival lies not in their teeth alone, but in their social bonds. Wolves live and hunt as packs, and each pack is ruled by an alpha pair, one male and one female, who guide the group with authority and experience. Unlike the myths of constant dominance battles, wolf packs often operate like families. The alphas are not tyrants, but leaders, raising pups, coordinating hunts, and keeping peace within the group. Younger wolves learn their place, supporting the pack's survival while awaiting their own chance to lead. Pups are born in dens dug into hillsides or riverbanks, their tiny cries breaking the Arctic silence in spring. For weeks, the entire pack revolves around them. Older siblings help guard the den, while hunters bring back food for nursing mothers. This cooperative care ensures that the next generation has the best chance of survival in a land where mistakes are rarely forgiven. By autumn, the pups are bold enough to join in the hunts, testing their strength, learning the rhythm of life from their elders. Wolves are more than hunters. They are keystone predators. Their presence controls caribou numbers, prevents overgrazing of the tundra, and ensures balance between plant, prey, and predator. When wolves thin the weak from herds, they strengthen the species. When they fail, the caribou thrive, showing how tightly interwoven the fates of both species truly are. At dusk, when the Arctic light softens, a wolf's howl carries across the tundra. It is a call to packmates, a warning to rivals, and a song to the wilderness itself. It speaks of unity, of survival, and of an ancient rhythm that still beats strong in this frozen world. In the chorus of the Arctic night, the wolves are its voice. In the hushed stillness of the boreal forest, where snow muffles every sound and shadows weave between spruce and birch, lives a phantom few ever see: the Canada lynx. With tufted ears like black flames and paws as broad as snowshoes, the lynx is a master of stealth, an animal that turns silence itself into a hunting tool. The lynx is a medium-sized wildcat, but don't let that fool you. It's perfectly engineered for survival in the Arctic's forest edge. Its oversized paws act like built-in snowshoes, allowing it to walk atop deep snow where heavier predators sink. Its fur, thick and frosted, blends seamlessly with the pale landscape, making it vanish like smoke when it moves. With sharp eyesight and hearing, the lynx can detect the faintest rustle beneath the snow. But what truly defines this cat is its age-old relationship with one species: the snowshoe hare. If the Arctic had a fable of predator and prey locked in eternal dance, the lynx and hare would be the main characters. The hare's populations rise and fall in a 10-year cycle, and the lynx's numbers echo them almost perfectly. When hares are plentiful, lynx thrive, litters are larger, survival rates are higher, and the cats are bold. When hare populations crash, the lynx face famine, their litters dwindle, and some disperse in search of new hunting grounds. This cycle shapes not only the lynx but the forest itself. The snowshoe hare is a voracious browser, stripping young trees and shrubs. When hare numbers swell, they transform the forest undergrowth. When they decline, vegetation rebounds, creating a pulsing rhythm in the boreal world. The lynx, riding these waves of abundance and scarcity, is both predator and participant in the heartbeat of the forest. Despite their reliance on hares, lynx are flexible. They'll take grouse, squirrels, and even young deer if the opportunity presents itself. Yet they are never wasteful hunters. Each kill is precise, swift, and usually delivered with a single powerful bite. Unlike wolves, who hunt in packs, lynx are solitary shadows, preferring to rely on patience rather than brute force. Encounters with humans are rare. A lynx can watch from the trees unseen as you walk past. Photographers can spend weeks tracking signs: paw prints in snow, scratches on tree trunks, tufts of fur caught on bark, without ever catching more than a fleeting glimpse. To see one is to feel as though the forest itself has chosen to reveal a secret. In autumn, the lynx grow even shaggier coats, preparing for the brutal winter. Come mating season, usually late winter, males roam widely, their haunting yowls echoing through the silent woods. Kittens are born in spring, usually in the shelter of fallen logs or dense thickets. The mother fiercely protects them, teaching them to stalk and pounce before they strike out on their own. In Gates of the Arctic, the lynx remains an enigma, rare, elusive, yet essential. It embodies the quiet predator's role in balancing life on the forest edge, ensuring no species tips the scales too far. To speak of the lynx is to speak of mystery itself, a reminder that some of nature's most powerful forces are not the loudest, but the ones that slip, unseen, through the snow. Where the tundra meets the forest and the icy winds sweep unchallenged across the land, two cunning survivors patrol the wilderness: the red fox and its smaller, frost-bound cousin, the Arctic fox. Both are opportunists, tricksters of the north, carving out a living in a land where fortune favors the adaptable. The red fox, with its fiery coat and bushy tail, is a familiar sight across much of the world. But here, in Gates of the Arctic, it has pushed its range to the very edge of survival. Larger and more versatile than the Arctic fox, it thrives where the boreal forest stretches into the tundra, hunting rodents, raiding bird nests, and scavenging from the kills of greater predators. Sharp-witted and bold, the red fox is never far from opportunity. Trailing behind wolf packs, it waits patiently for leftovers, darting in once the frenzy subsides. What wolves abandon, a half-chewed rib, scraps of sinew, the fox eagerly claims. It is not pride that feeds it, but pragmatism. In a land where every calorie counts, scavenging is as noble a strategy as the most daring of hunts. The Arctic fox, in contrast, is a creature carved from winter itself. Smaller, rounder, with fur so dense it is said to be the warmest of any mammal, it thrives in conditions that test even the hardiest species. In summer, its coat is brown and mottled, blending seamlessly with the tundra's lichens and stones. But when winter descends, it transforms into a ghost, pure white, vanishing against the snowdrifts it calls home. Unlike the red fox, the Arctic fox pushes farther into the barren, treeless expanses. Here it follows the caribou herds, scavenging after wolves, much like its cousin, yet also relying on its own sharp senses to locate lemmings and voles buried beneath the snow. With ears keenly tuned to the faintest movement, it listens, still as stone, before launching itself into the air and plunging head first through the crust to snatch its prey. This dramatic hunting leap, both graceful and precise, is one of the Arctic's most iconic spectacles. Though rivals in some places, the red fox and Arctic fox rarely cross paths here. Where forests linger, the red fox dominates. Where the tundra stretches wide, the Arctic fox reigns supreme. Yet climate change, warming the far north, has begun to shift this delicate balance. As the forest slowly creeps farther into the tundra, red foxes expand their territory, sometimes outcompeting their smaller relatives. For now, though, both remain, each holding their ground in the niches carved by ice and forest. In spring, fox dens come alive with playful kits. Mothers bring back morsels, ptarmigan chicks, fish, or scraps of carrion, while the young tumble and tussle at the den's mouth. It is a brief season of plenty, a time when survival seems effortless. But winter always returns, and with it, the fox's true test. Whether draped in russet or cloaked in white, foxes of the Arctic embody cunning and resilience. They are scavengers, hunters, and survivors, thriving in the margins left by greater beasts. In this land of giants, the fox is proof that even the smallest predators can endure, not through strength, but through wit. High above the Arctic valleys and windswept cliffs, shadows slice silently across the snow. These are the rulers of the sky, the golden eagles and gerfalcons, predators whose hunting grounds stretch across tundra, mountains, and icy rivers. In a land where survival is unforgiving, these birds embody precision, patience, and power. The golden eagle is a titan of the skies, its wings spanning more than 7 feet, dark feathers glinting against the pale light. When it soars above the ridges, smaller animals scatter instinctively. Nothing escapes its eyes. From hundreds of feet in the air, an eagle can spot the twitch of a hare's ear or the scurry of a marmot on the rocks. It waits, suspended in silence, before folding its wings and diving at nearly 150 miles per hour, a living arrow of muscle and talon. One strike is often all it takes. A snowshoe hare or young caribou calf rarely has a chance against the grip of those powerful claws. But it is not alone in ruling the skies. The gerfalcon, the largest falcon in the world, is a ghost of the north. Sleek, fast, and relentless, it is built for high-speed pursuit. Unlike the eagle, which relies on strength and surprise, the gerfalcon thrives on endurance and speed. With rapid wing beats, it chases ptarmigan across the tundra, twisting and diving in an aerial duel that can last for minutes. The falcon's flight is a test of stamina, And when it wins, the result is swift and brutal. Their presence is more than spectacle. It is balanced. Without these hunters, prey like ptarmigan, hares, or ground squirrels would multiply unchecked, stripping fragile ecosystems of vegetation. Every successful hunt, every chase, every fallen prey keeps the Arctic in equilibrium. The sky, as much as the land, dictates the survival of the tundra. Nests are built high on cliffs, rocky outcrops, or even abandoned raven platforms. Here, golden eagles and gyrfalcons raise their young against the relentless winds. The chicks, hungry and demanding, depend on their parents' daily hunts. A brood of eaglets may consume several pounds of meat each day, a heavy burden in a land where food is never guaranteed. Parents often risk dangerous hunts to provide, knowing that failure could mean the death of their young. Other creatures know the power of these winged predators. Foxes slink closer to nesting sites, hoping to steal eggs or fledglings. Ravens mob the great birds in the air, attempting to drive them from their territories. Yet the eagle and the falcon endure as they have for centuries, locked in the eternal cycle of hunter and hunted. And when the midnight sun blazes across the horizon, or when the endless winter darkness settles in, these birds remain sentinels of the Arctic sky. Silent, patient, and lethal, they remind us that survival in this wilderness does not only belong to the beasts on the ground, but also to the sharp eyes and swift wings above. If there's one animal that truly embodies the drama of survival in the Arctic, it's the snowshoe hare. At first glance, it looks like just another rabbit with oversized feet and twitching whiskers. But this little creature is one of the most important players in the northern wilderness, quietly shaping the destinies of predators and forests alike. The snowshoe hare is best known for its iconic boom and bust population cycles. Roughly every 10 years, their numbers explode across the boreal forest and tundra edges. The ground seems alive with bounding white forms in winter and brown streaks in summer. They eat voraciously, stripping willows, birch, and other shrubs, and in their abundance, they sustain a host of predators. Then, as if by some invisible switch, the population collapses. The forest quiets. Predators grow lean, and the cycle begins again. These rises and falls ripple through the food web, making the hare not just another herbivore, but a keystone species of the Arctic ecosystem. Seasonality is written all over the snowshoe hare's body. Its oversized hind feet act like natural snowshoes, spreading weight so it can run atop deep drifts with astonishing speed. In the blink of an eye, it can leap several meters, zigzagging through brush to evade predators. But its most remarkable adaptation is its coat. In summer, the hare's fur is a warm brown, blending seamlessly with leaf litter and undergrowth. As winter approaches, it molts into a dazzling white cloak, a disguise against the snow. Yet climate change is complicating this strategy. When the snow arrives late or melts early, hares stand out like glowing targets, their camouflage mismatched to the landscape. For many, this mistiming can be fatal. Predators rely heavily on the hare. Lynx in particular are bound to its fate. When hares are plentiful, lynx numbers soar. Litters are larger, survival rates higher. When the hare population crashes, lynx vanish into near starvation, with some moving vast distances in search of food. Owls, foxes, coyotes, and even eagles also hunt hares, their fortunes rising and falling with the same 10-year rhythm. But the snowshoe hare is more than a victim in this eternal cycle of pursuit. Its browsing shapes the very vegetation of the north. During population booms, willows and young birches are stripped bare, influencing which plants dominate the forest edge. In this way, the hare helps sculpt the Arctic landscape, altering habitats that in turn affect other species. Life for a hare is brief and perilous. Few live beyond a year, and nearly every creature around seems to want them for dinner. Yet through sheer numbers, speed and camouflage, they endure. Each spring, as new generations bound into the world, they fuel once again the heartbeat of the Arctic food chain. The snowshoe hare may not roar like a bear or soar like an eagle, but in the silent drama of survival, it is the pulse of the boreal edge. In its rise and fall, it carries the fate of predators, plants, and the balance of the Arctic wilderness itself. Beneath the snow, where the Arctic winds cannot reach, life carries on in miniature. Here, in a hidden world of tunnels and burrows, the lemmings and their rodent kin scurry endlessly, tiny architects of survival. To the casual eye, they might seem insignificant, just fist-sized bundles of fur, but in truth, they are the beating heart of the Arctic food web. Lemmings are perhaps the most famous of the tundra's small mammals, notorious in folklore for their supposed mass suicides, a myth created by old films and misunderstandings. In reality, lemmings are far too busy surviving to stage such tragic spectacles. Their lives revolve around one constant cycle: eat, breed, and avoid being eaten, and they breed with astonishing speed. A single female lemming can produce several litters in one summer, each with multiple pups. When conditions are right, populations explode, carpeting the tundra with a tide of tiny bodies. These population booms are no small matter. When lemmings thrive, so does everything else. Snowy owls raise larger broods, stoats grow fat and bold, foxes find easy pickings, and even wolves benefit indirectly. Conversely, when the lemming numbers crash, as they inevitably do every few years, predators starve, move on, or are forced to take greater risks hunting larger prey. The humble lemming, by its very existence, orchestrates a grand symphony of survival across the north. But life is no easier underground. Winter forces these rodents into the subnivean zone, the hidden layer between snow and soil, where they gnaw at roots, grasses, and mosses. Their tunnels become highways of survival, crisscrossing under the white world above. Here, lemmings and voles escape the brutal cold and the piercing talons of hawks and owls. Yet even in this hidden sanctuary, danger lurks. The keen noses of foxes sniff out their burrows, and weasels, long, sinuous, and merciless, slip inside their snowy corridors like assassins. Rodents in the Arctic are more than just lemmings. Voles scurry through the forest's edge, gnawing bark and roots, while ground squirrels dig deep hibernation chambers in alpine meadows. The Arctic ground squirrel, in fact, holds a remarkable record. It allows its body temperature to drop below freezing during hibernation, effectively becoming the coldest-blooded mammal alive. For months it remains in suspended animation, a tiny miracle of endurance. From the snowy owl's haunting cries to the quick shadow of a hunting stoat, all these dramas trace back to the rodents. They are the foundation stone of Arctic life, the invisible fuel that powers the great predators above. Without them, the tundra would fall silent, stripped of its heartbeat. If the Arctic has its architects, then none rival the beaver, the flat-tailed, buck-toothed, endlessly industrious builder of wetlands. Where most animals adapt to the landscape, the beaver dares to reshape it. Give them a trickle of water, some nearby willow or birch, and soon you'll find a masterpiece of engineering rising from the shallows. A dam, sturdy and deliberate, turning a stream into a pond. Each stick is carefully chosen, chewed and fitted. Mud is plastered like mortar, and the current itself is tamed. What was once a simple brook is now transformed into a pool teeming with new life. Frogs croak in the shallows, ducks paddle across the ripples, and fish, once stranded in shrinking summer streams, suddenly have a refuge. But the beaver's most remarkable feat isn't just the dam. It's the lodge, a fortress of sticks, logs, and mud, domed high above the waterline, with secret underwater entrances that keep predators at bay. Inside, the chambers are warm, dry, and surprisingly spacious. Families of beavers huddle here through the long Arctic winter, feeding on caches of twigs stored underwater, safe beneath the ice. While other animals struggle simply to endure the cold, beavers thrive in their self-made sanctuaries. These wetlands don't just serve the beavers. They ripple outward, reshaping entire ecosystems. When beavers slow a river's flow, sediment settles. Grasses sprout. Shallow pools attract insects, which bring swarms of hungry birds. Moose wade in to browse aquatic plants. Even predators benefit. Wolves and foxes patrol the pond edges, knowing prey will gather here. The beaver, unknowingly, becomes a keystone species, its work sustaining life far beyond its lodge. In winter, when the tundra seems frozen and lifeless, the beaver's ponds are still alive beneath the ice. Oxygen circulates in the slowed waters, keeping fish alive. Otters dive under the frozen surface, slipping past the very dams that created this haven. Life clings on because the beavers built the stage for it to survive. But being a wetland engineer comes with danger. Wolves may prowl the snowy banks, waiting for a careless step. Bears in spring may claw at a lodge, testing its strength. Yet the beaver's defenses, water, wood, and wit, usually hold strong. Their strategy isn't speed or strength, but patience and construction. And perhaps most astonishing of all, the legacy of a single family can last generations. Long after a lodge has been abandoned, the pond remains, slowly filling with silt, becoming a meadow, then a forest. The beaver's touch lingers in the land, carving out new habitats in a cycle that stretches for decades. In the grand narrative of the Arctic, the beaver isn't the largest, nor the most feared. It doesn't soar, stalk, or stampede. Yet few creatures wield such quiet influence. With teeth and tenacity, the beaver turns water into sanctuary, shaping wilderness not with roar or claw, but with design. The Arctic, for all its harshness, is not a land of endless scarcity. Each summer, as the snow melts and rivers roar with new life, the tundra transforms into a global nursery. For a brief window of warmth and abundance, millions of migratory birds arrive from every corner of the world, drawn to the Arctic like pilgrims seeking sanctuary. From South America, Africa, Asia, and beyond, birds embark on staggering journeys that boggle the imagination. Tiny sandpipers, no bigger than a fist, can fly thousands of miles nonstop, wings beating tirelessly across oceans and storms. Arctic terns, famed voyagers of the animal kingdom, make the longest migration of all, traveling from pole to pole, chasing eternal summer across the globe. When they arrive, their voices fill the skies in a chorus that declares, "Life has returned to the tundra." The flat, open landscapes of the Arctic are perfect for nesting. With few trees to hide in, birds scrape shallow depressions in the ground, line them with feathers or moss, and lay precious eggs on the tundra floor. Here, predators are plenty, foxes, jaegers, and gulls all searching for an easy meal. But the birds gamble on timing. In summer, Food is everywhere. Insects swarm the air in clouds, filling the mouths of hungry chicks. Fresh shoots of sedges and grasses spread green across the plains. For a few frantic months, the Arctic becomes a land of feast. Geese arrive in armies, their honking calls echoing across wetlands and rivers. Snow geese, brant, and Canada geese crowd the marshes, grazing on grasses and bulrushes. Shorebirds like plovers and dunlins scurry along riverbanks, their chicks quick to leave the nest and forage for themselves. Above, the elegant long-tailed Jaeger patrols, stealing meals from other birds in aerial dogfights. The skies themselves become a battlefield of survival. But even in this abundance, there is danger. Storms can strike suddenly, chilling chicks before they grow strong enough to fly. Predators lurk at every turn, from foxes waiting to snatch eggs to gulls swooping down on hatchlings. Parents defend their nests with everything they have, some feigning broken wings to lure predators away, others diving fearlessly at intruders. For the birds, timing is everything. They must arrive, breed, and raise their young all within the narrow window of the Arctic summer. As the first frosts return in late August, the great departure begins. The skies fill with flocks heading southward, beginning the epic journeys all over again. Some will not survive. The flights are long and the hazards are many. Hunters, storms, exhaustion, and shrinking wetlands across migration routes. But for those who do, the reward is the continuation of one of the most awe-inspiring cycles in nature. The Arctic may seem like an unlikely nursery, but for millions of birds, it is the heartbeat of life itself. The Arctic is not just the realm of bears and wolves. It is also a crossroads of the world, where creatures from every continent gather, if only for a fleeting season, to ensure the survival of their kind. At dawn, the Arctic wetlands awaken, not with the silence of snow, but with music. The calls of loons ripple across glassy lakes like echoes from another world. Trumpeter swans rise from the reeds, their enormous wings beating slow, deliberate rhythms that sound almost like drums against the morning mist. Ducks scatter in nervous bursts, while geese stretch their necks, honking in chorus as though rehearsing for their long journey south. The wetlands of the north may look fragile, but for these birds, they are sanctuaries of life, nurseries cradled in the cold. The loon, with its haunting cry, has long been called the voice of the wilderness. Blackhead, daggerbill, and eyes like burning coals, it slips beneath the water with the grace of a phantom. Below the surface, it hunts with perfect precision, chasing fish through liquid shadows. To the loon, these pristine lakes are both home and hunting ground. Mated pairs return to the same waters year after year, fiercely defending their territory from intruders. A loon's call is not just a sound, it is a claim, a declaration that this stretch of water belongs to them and to their young. Nearby, swans gather in family groups, the largest of the wetland waterfowl. Their elegance hides their strength. A trumpeter swan's wingspan can stretch more than 2 meters, and once airborne, they seem unstoppable. Yet swans are devoted parents, and their bond with their cygnets is tender. Fluffy gray young trail behind their parents, vulnerable and slow, while the adults keep constant watch for predators. The Arctic may be rich with food during summer, but it is also rich with danger. Eagles circle above. Foxes slink along the shoreline. Even a snapping pike lurking in the shallows can threaten a duckling or gosling. For every new life hatched, a gauntlet must be run. Ducks, too, thrive in these wetlands, though their lives are often shorter and harsher. Mallards, scaups, pintails. Each species brings its own splash of color and habit. Many nest on the edges of ponds or hidden in grass, where their camouflage protects them from wandering eyes. But camouflage is never perfect. Ravens scour the reeds for unattended eggs. Mink and otters patrol the edges of water, swift and relentless. In the Arctic, raising young is not a gentle act. It is a battle fought daily. And yet, despite the threats, life explodes here with overwhelming abundance. The sheer number of waterfowl that return each year to breed is staggering. The Arctic wetlands become alive with wings, calls, splashes, and movement. These birds come because nowhere else offers such bounty. Long hours of daylight, insect swarms thick enough to feed thousands, and lakes untouched by human noise. For a brief, shining season, the wetlands become a paradise. But paradise never lasts. As the days shorten, the first whispers of winter stir across the land. Waterfowl feel it before the ice appears. One by one they gather in flocks, preparing for the long flights south. Loons depart silently. Swans rise in majestic groups, their calls echoing farewell. Ducks take off in clouds, darting and weaving like smoke in the sky. The wetlands fall quiet once more, holding their silence until the next summer sun returns to awaken them. In the Arctic, not every creature that dominates the landscape is large or fearsome. Some claim the skies with cunning, others fill the tundra with fleeting beauty. Among them are 2 very different voices, the ravens, the tricksters and scavengers of the north, and the smaller songbirds, warblers, sparrows, and finches, whose brief season of music defines the Arctic summer. The raven has long held a special place in Arctic myth and ecology. With sleek black feathers, an intelligent eye, and a croaking voice that seems to echo through the frozen valleys, the raven is far more than just a scavenger. Indigenous legends across the Arctic often describe the raven as a creator, a trickster, and a bringer of light. But in practical terms, ravens are master opportunists. They follow wolves, polar bears, and hunters, waiting for the remains of a kill. They are bold enough to snatch scraps of meat from carcasses and clever enough to lead predators toward wounded animals, a behavior that has been documented by biologists observing wolf packs. The raven's intelligence is not just folklore. Scientists have recorded ravens solving puzzles, caching food for later, and even mimicking the calls of other animals. In a land where resources are scarce, cunning is as valuable as strength, and ravens have evolved to become survivalists of the highest order. If ravens represent the dark, mischievous wisdom of the Arctic, then the small migratory songbirds are its fleeting bursts of joy. Each spring, as the snow begins to melt and the tundra softens, millions of tiny birds arrive from every corner of the world. Warblers from Central America, sparrows from temperate forests, and buntings from faraway prairies all converge on the Arctic. Why? Because here, in this short window of endless daylight, food is abundant. The brief insect explosion that comes with thawed wetlands provides enough protein to raise broods quickly before the cold returns. Warblers flit among dwarf willows and birches, their high-pitched trills weaving through the crisp air. Lapland longspurs and snow buntings scatter across the tundra, their songs carrying in the open spaces. To a visitor, The Arctic might seem silent and barren in winter, but in summer, the tundra becomes a vast outdoor concert hall. Each call and trill is part of an ancient rhythm, territories being claimed, mates being wooed, and life being hurriedly sustained before the curtain of winter falls once again. Survival here requires its own set of adaptations. Many songbirds change plumage with the season, donning brighter feathers in summer to attract mates and molting into subtler tones for migration. They time their nesting with remarkable precision, ensuring that their chicks hatch just as the insect swarms peak. Even the structure of their nests, often tucked low among mosses or hidden under shrubs, offers protection against predators like foxes and jaegers. The contrast between raven and songbird highlights the duality of Arctic life, the eternal scavenger and the ephemeral singer. One thrives year-round, clever enough to endure the hardest months. The other comes only for a brief moment, transforming the frozen world into a place of music and renewal. When winter returns, the small birds will vanish, flying thousands of miles south. But the raven will remain, a black silhouette against the pale snow, watching, waiting, and surviving. In the Arctic, even the smallest or most overlooked creatures, whether cunning or delicate, carry stories that shape this unforgiving yet extraordinary land. The Arctic spends most of its year locked in ice and silence, a realm ruled by shadow, snow, and hunger. But then, almost like a spell being lifted, the earth tilts just enough, and sunlight pours down onto the tundra for nearly 24 hours a day. The season of darkness gives way to the season of light, and with it, a miracle. The short Arctic summer. It doesn't creep in gently. It arrives in an explosion. Snow and ice melt in a rush, rivers swell, and the once frozen ground softens, releasing hidden seeds and roots that have been waiting months for their moment. Almost overnight, the land blooms. Mosses and lichens turn green, dwarf willows and Arctic poppies burst open, and carpets of wildflowers paint the tundra in shades of yellow, purple, and white. For a few brief weeks, the Arctic is not a wasteland but a garden, albeit one with an expiration date ticking loudly in the background. But it's not just plants that awaken. Insects emerge in staggering numbers. Clouds of mosquitoes, midges, and black flies rise from the wetlands, forming living swarms that can blot out the horizon. To humans, they're pure torment. To wildlife, they're survival. Birds feast on them, caribou are driven mad by them, and predators use the chaos to their advantage. The buzzing clouds are not just a nuisance, they're the invisible engine of the Arctic food web, and everywhere, animals gorge as if their lives depend on it. Because they do. Caribou graze on the fresh green shoots, wolves shadow their migrations, and bears dig furiously for roots, berries, and carrion to pack on fat. Migratory birds, having traveled thousands of miles, nest and raise their young at breakneck speed. There's no time to waste. Eggs must be laid, chicks must grow, and fledglings must take flight, all before the first hint of frost returns. Even the smallest creatures take part in this frenzy. Lemmings reproduce in booming numbers, burrowing under the warming ground and fueling the diets of foxes, owls, and lynx. Bees and flies pollinate flowers in the endless daylight, while fish swim upriver, capitalizing on the swollen waters. Life in the Arctic knows one truth. When the feast arrives, you eat. But there is beauty hidden in this frenzy. Loons sing haunting calls across shimmering lakes, swans glide through mirror-like ponds, and tiny warblers fill the air with songs that seem to stretch the sunlight even longer. To stand in an Arctic meadow in midsummer is to feel as though time has bent, a place where the sun refuses to set, and every creature is racing against the clock. And then, just as suddenly as it came, it begins to fade. The flowers close, the insects thin, and the first cold winds sweep in from the north. The banquet is over, and the land braces itself for silence once more. The short Arctic summer is gone, but for those who live through it, the brief season of abundance will mean the difference between survival and death in the long winter ahead. And then, the Arctic breathes out. The short, frantic summer with its endless sunlight collapses into memory, and the land tips once again into winter. The transformation is brutal. Within weeks, daylight vanishes. Darkness swallows the horizon. For months, the Arctic is wrapped in night, an unbroken shroud of cold and silence. Temperatures plummet to extremes that can freeze exposed skin in seconds, and the world becomes a cathedral of ice. This is survival at its purest. Plants retreat into dormancy, their stems withered and hidden beneath snowdrifts. Insects disappear. Most birds have fled thousands of miles south to gentler climates. The wetlands and rivers freeze solid, glaciers creak, and the air grows still except for the occasional howl of the wind. What remains is a frozen kingdom where only the toughest endure. Across this white wilderness, wolves thrive. Winter is their season. While deep snow hinders smaller creatures, it gives wolfpacks an advantage. They hunt along frozen rivers and across tundra plains, their paws spreading weight across crusted snow where caribou sink deep. The chase is long, the pack coordinated. Every member has a role, driving prey, tiring it, cutting it off. A kill means life for the whole family, a hard-won feast in the endless dark. Meanwhile, caribou and musk oxen dig with their hooves through snow to reach lichen, scraping out survival mouthful by mouthful. Their thick coats insulate against the cold, but predators shadow them constantly. For them, winter is not an ally, it's a gauntlet. But winter isn't only about struggle, it's also about spectacle. High above the frozen tundra, when the skies are clear, the aurora borealis paints the heavens with ghostly light. Green, violet, and crimson waves shimmer and dance in silence. For millennia, these northern lights have been a source of awe, legend, and guidance for the people who call this place home. To the animals, it is simply a shifting sky. But to us, it's a reminder of the beauty that thrives even in the harshest conditions. Life continues in small, hidden ways. Arctic foxes, wrapped in their pure white coats, slip across the snow, scavenging wolf kills or hunting lemmings under the drifts. Snowy owls perch silently, listening for the faintest sound of movement beneath the ice crust. Polar bears, unless in hibernation or pregnant dens, continue their lonely patrols along frozen seas, waiting for the return of seals. Even tiny lemmings persist, tunneling beneath the snow in secret networks, feeding on roots and seeds, unseen but essential. The silence of the Arctic winter is deceptive. Beneath it, survival plays out in 1,000 quiet dramas. Every heartbeat, every step, every scrape in the snow is a battle against extinction. And yet, the cycle will turn again. The sun will rise after months of absence, first as a dim glow on the horizon, then as a blazing return. Shadows will shorten. Ice will soften. The great Arctic machine will awaken for another furious summer of life. But for now, the land rests. Wolves roam. The aurora burns. And the Arctic, frozen and magnificent, survives its longest night. Gates of the Arctic stands as one of the purest places left on Earth. No roads, no power lines, no mines cutting scars into its valleys. It is wilderness in the truest sense, raw, untamed, and unbroken by human hands. Caribou still march across the tundra in ancient migrations. Wolves still test their packs against the cold, and rivers still carve their way through mountains as they have for millennia. Here time feels slower, untouched by the hurried pulse of human civilization. But even this sanctuary is not beyond our reach. Climate change creeps across the Arctic like an invisible predator. The permafrost, ground that has been frozen for tens of thousands of years, is thawing, releasing greenhouse gases that accelerate warming even further. Caribou migrations shift with changing seasons, while melting ice alters rivers and wetlands that birds, fish, and beavers depend on. Beyond the park's borders, oil exploration and industrial expansion threaten to fracture the ecosystems that spill across invisible boundaries. Wilderness does not obey maps, and neither do the animals that rely on it. This is the contrast that defines the Arctic, one of the least disturbed landscapes left, yet one of the most vulnerable. The fate of this place rests not only with those who walk its valleys, but with humanity as a whole. The Arctic is more than a wilderness. It is a mirror, reflecting back the choices we make as stewards of the earth. To keep it wild is to protect a piece of our own soul. And that's life in the Arctic, wild, raw, and breathtaking. What do you think? Let us know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this journey, don't miss our dive into the untamed wilds of Antarctica next.